Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. Oh, goodness. Fuck. Sorry, I had to... God damn it. Okay, now let's actually test that. Testing, testing. Yeah, I think it sounds okay. If not, let me know. Sorry about that. Hello, hello, hello. Sorry, I'm a bit late, just in general. Well, today I had to go pick up something from FedEx because they, for some reason, just wouldn't leave it here, and I always miss them. Anyway, so I got that now, and then literally just as I started, I had to. Someone was asking me some questions I had to sort out and tell them about. Anyways, I am not high on crack. I don't do drugs. Leave me be. Anyways, so yes, today we're making a return to reading streams. Means with means that today we're finally continuing in Sherlock Holmes. That's why I say it's up to public interpretation, bro. Don't put it up to public interpretation, though. The fact I'm not on drugs should not be up to interpretation. Christ. But welcome, Mr. Mustache. I'm glad you could be here. I considered doing Fate today, but I wasn't really feeling it. So I'm like, you know what sounds good? I haven't done in a while. A reading stream. So that's what we're gonna do after I sort out a few other things here. I've been rushing it. I gotcha. It's good to switch things up. Kind of need things to calm down myself since I just got done playing a bit of Faith. What? Faith, the Unholy Trinity? Never heard of it. Oh boy, okay, what are we going to be looking at here? This looks unsettling. Damn, thanks, I hate it. Now I found the game for Ghastly to make you play next month. God damn it. I have things to play next month. Anything scary in the pipeline? Not overly scary, because I'm a little bitch. If not, I have ideas this season. I'm probably gonna attempt Castlevania. I'm probably going to play Jack Hollow, or not Jack Hollow, Pumpkin Jack. I'm really looking forward to that. I've been saving that one. There's of course probably gonna be some FGO Halloween event stuff. Story time, yay! Hi, Antaka. What else was I thinking? Ghastly really wants me to play like Phasmophobia and whatnot. Not feeling that though. I'm scared. I'm gonna bring up Faith to her. Oh God. She's at work right now. But I guess if you want to, you can tell her. Or I'll tell her you said something. So, I won't, like, completely leave you out to dry. Anyways, how about we get into it? This is the book series where I developed my Sherlock Holmes voice, after all, that I've been using in Fate. And then I use my discount Johnny Young Bosch voice for Watson. And a variety of horribly butchered British accents for literally everyone else. Prepare yourselves. For it shall be horrific. But this is the third Sherlock Holmes. Plot twist: Doppel is playing Sanson and reading a British book series to mock the shit out of it. But this is the third Sherlock Holmes book that we've been reading. We read the first two, which was I'm forgetting the name of the first book. God damn it. Okay, the first one was called A Study in Scarlet, and the second one, The Sign of the Four. I think the first one, The Scarlet Letter. No, The Scarlet Letter is very different and very boring from what I hear. That was a book I did not have to read in high school, unlike everyone else. Instead, I got to watch Spirited Away at the school that I went to for my freshman year. Because my Lin Tom teacher was awesome. We did a whole unit on Spirited Away. Anyway, so after the Sign of the Four, the Sherlock Holmes stories were released as short stories and were collected in two main volumes before attempting to be finished with the Hounds of Baskerville. That will come after we finish these two short story collections, and which would then follow by the Return of Sherlock Holmes. So, we'll probably eventually get to all that. But for now, sit back, relax, grab a snack, a cup of tea, hot chocolate, whatever fills your belly with warm, relaxing food and liquid. Sounds weird. As I tell you the adventures of Sherlock Holmes by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. The first story in our collection is called A Scandal. Yeah, it's Scandal. I don't think that's Scoundrel. A Scandal in Bohemia. Bohemia? Really? That. Alright. To Sherlock Holmes, she is always the woman. I have seldom heard him mention her under any other name. In his eyes she eclipses and predominates the whole of her sex. It was not that he felt any emotion akin to love for Irene Elder. All emotion that one particularly were abhorrent to his cold, precise, but admirably balanced mind. He was, I take it, the most perfect reasoning and observing machine that the world had seen, but as a lover he would have placed himself in a false position. He never spoke of the softer passions, save with a gibe and a sneer. They were admirable things for the observer, excellent for drawing the veil from men's motives and actions. But for the trained reasoner to admit such intrusions into his own delicate and finely adjusted temperament was to introduce a distracting factor which might throw doubt upon all his mental results. Grit in a sensitive instrument, or a crack in one of his own high-powered lenses, would not be more disturbing than a strong emotion in a nature such as his. And yet there was but one woman to him, that woman with the late Irene Alder, of dubious and questionable memory. I had seen little of Holmes's lately. My marriage had drifted us away from each other. My own complete happiness and home-center interest, which rise up around the man who first finds himself master of his own establishment, who's sufficient to absorb all of my attention, while Holmes, who loved every form of society with his whole bohemian soul, remained in our lodgings in Baker Street, buried among his old books and alternating from week to week between cocaine and ambition, the drowsiness of the drug and the fierce energy of his own keen nature. He was still, as ever, deeply attracted by the study of crime, and occupied his immense faculties, or is that facilities? I think it's facilities and extraordinary powers of observation and following out those clues. And clearing, oh, for God's sake, Watson, why is this such a long run-on sentence? Take a breath. And clearing up those mysteries which had abandoned as hopeless as by official police. From time to time I heard such vague accounts of his doings, of his summons to Odious in the case of Trepoff murder, of his clearing of the singular tragedy of Atkinson's brothers. Oh God, these names! I forgot how bad these were. For me. Given Sherlock's eccentric nature, Watson probably has to write on the move. Given his stature, he's probably doing a lot. No time for periods, only for commas. Okay, let me back up. The singular tragedy of the Arkansas brothers, of O'Malley, and finally the mission which he accomplished so delicately and successfully for the reigning family of Holland. Kind of surprised Watson considered overweight since he's a war vet. Is he overweight, though? I never heard that as a description in the books. I see that as like a physical description in other media, but I've never seen it as his description in the book. And then again, I might have just forgotten it. Though I think my favorite thing about Watson's depiction and anything is just the thing that became a meme. I'm an armory doctor, which means I can break all the bones in your body while naming them. That's how most interpretations go of him. I think it's because he let himself go while he was on injured leave. Possibly? Though you'd think with as much running around as Holmes does, Watson would get back into shape. I would love it if, like, they did a Sherlock Holmes series where he is just, like, really chubby at the beginning, but as the series goes on, he just gets more and more fit as he's dragged around on all these adventures. Beyond these signs of his activities, however, which I merely shared with all the readers of the daily press, I knew of little of my former friend and companion. One night, it was on the 20th of March, 1888. Bro was in the war in India. Compared to what he had to do there, his workouts with Sherlock burns 10 calories tops. Just comparison doesn't change your calorie burning. I'm pretty sure it was the Middle East. They referenced the war in India at one point, but it's part of the backstory of someone else in the Sign of the Four. So I'm pretty sure Watson was in Afghanistan. Back whenever that was will that be before? Yeah, that's before the Treaty of Sykes. I'll double check though. I'm trying to remember something from the first book. Give me a moment. Where did Dr. Watson serve? Yeah, he was an army doctor in Afghanistan. He explains how he's been seriously wounded to the shoulder at Maiwand and recounts that due to the courage of his orderly, who had found transport for him, he had been lucky to survive the retreat to Kandahar. I probably butchered that. And then he met Sherlock, who was looking for a roommate, split rents. Yeah, we read that book. I said, he sounds like a fine fellow to board with. I'll meet him right away. Worst mistake of my life. I mean, it gave him something to do. He was kind of just idling away before that. Anyways, we'll start back at the beginning of that sentence. One night, it was on the 20th of March, 1888, I was returning from a journey to a patient, for I had now returned to civil practice, when my way led me through Baker Street. Still remember in one of the games, Watson walked to the home study right when he was trying to shoot a target blindfolded. Yeah, that sounds like a very Holmes thing to do. You see, Watson, I was trying to see if I would hit a target with my third eye, as the more mystically persuasive people believe they have. I think, based upon all the holes in the wall, that it is utter nonsense. As I passed the well-remembered door, which must always be associated in my mind with my wooing, and with the dark dents of the study in scarlet, I seized with a keen desire to see Holmes again, to know how he was employing his extraordinary powers. His rooms were brilliantly lit, and even as I looked up I saw his tall, spare figure pass twice in a dark silhouette against the blind. He was pacing the room swiftly, eagerly, with his head sunk upon his chest and his hands clasped between him. To me he knew every mood and habit, or who knew his every mood and habit, his attitude and manner told their whole story. He was at work again. He had risen out of his drug-created dreams and was hot upon the scent of a new problem. I rang the bell and was shown up to the chamber which had formerly been in part of my own. His manner was not effusive. It seldom was, but he was glad, I think, to see me. With hardly a word spoken, but with a kindly eye, he waved me to an armchair, threw across his case of cigars, an indicent, a spirit case, and oh God, these words, and a gasoline in the corner. I didn't pronounce that right. He stood before the fire and looked me over in his singular, introspective fashion. "What luck suits you?" he remarked. "I think, Watson, that you would put on 7.5 pounds that I saw you." "7," I answered. "Indeed, I would have thought a little more. It's a trifle more, I fancy, Watson. Yet in practice again, I observe, you did not tell me that you intend to go into harness." "Then how do you know?" "I see, I deduce. How do I know that you have been getting yourself very wet lately? You have a most clumsy, careless servant girl." "My dear Holmes," said I, "this is too much. You would certainly have been burned had you lived a few centuries ago. It is true that I have a country walk on Thursday, come home in a dreadful mess. But I have changed my clothes. I can't imagine how you deduce it. As to Mary Jane, she is incorrigible. My wife has given her notice. But there, again, I fail to see how you worked it out." He chuckled to himself and rubbed his long, nervous hands together. "It is simplicity itself. Yes, see, that is my catchphrase, you fucking pop culture obsessed weirdos. It's elementary. It is simplicity itself. That seems to be my fucking catchphrase, whether it was meant to be or not." Said he, my eyes tell me that on the inside of your left shoe, just where the fire light strikes it, the leather is scored by 6 almost spinal cuts. Obviously, they've been caused by someone who was very carelessly scraped around the edges of the sole in order to remove Kraft's mark from it. And you see my double deduction. You have been out in vile weather. You are particularly malignant, mood-slitting specimen of the London slavery. As is your practice, if a gentleman walks in my room, smelling of idle form, with a black mark of 9 of silver upon his right forearm, and a bulge on the right side of his top hat to show where he is seated his stethoscope, I must be dull. Indeed, if I do not pronounce him to be an active member of the medical profession." I could not help laughing at the ease in which he explained his process of deduction. "When I hear you give your reasons," I remarked, "the thing always appears to me to be so ridiculously simple that I could easily do it myself, though at such successive instances of your reasoning I am baffled until you explain your process, and yet I believe that my eyes are as good as yours." "Quite so," he answered, lighting a cigarette, and throwing himself down into an armchair. "You see, you do not observe. The distinction is clear. For example, you have frequently seen the steps which lead up from the hall to this room." "Frequently. How often?" "Well, some 100 times." "And how many are there?" "How many? I don't know." "Quite so. You have not observed, yet you have seen. That is just my point. Now I know there are 17 steps, because I have both seen and observed. By the time since you are interested in these little problems, and since you are good enough to chronicle one or two of my trifling experiences, you may be interested in this." Luxus Holmes. Hi, Zed. Welcome to the stream. Don't worry, the Conan Doyle's family can't come after us for this one, so we're allowed to use Sherlock Holmes. This is public domain, damn it. But welcome. He threw over a sheet of thick, pink-tinted notepaper which he had lying open upon the table. "It came by the last post," said he. "Read it aloud." Unlucky Zat, not sure if drunk or avoiding cease and desist. Remember, Great Gatsby is also public domain. Yeah, but The Great Gatsby sucks. I've read it. It sucks. How dare you? I've never even read it. I think the Family Guy covering it is probably the best version you can see, where it's just like, oh yeah, we're stay away from my wife. Now let's all drive across town, do this stupid thing with cars, or so we make a misunderstanding later, and uh then once we're across town, I'm going to challenge you again, tell you not to, or tell you to stay away from my wife again, just, on the other side of town. And then the misunderstanding happens, yeah. Surprise, a lot of older books do kind of suck. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde was one of the most boring books I've ever read. Later interpretations were more entertaining. I've read that, but I don't remember it. I remember, like, the general concept that Jekyll was trying to make up for some of Hyde's antics. But that is all I remember from that book. I don't remember the plot. Like, the ongoing plot besides the main monster bit. There are a lot of them probably suck because of how storytelling was shifted since they were written. So, I have done some reading streams of Dracula, and while it is weird, it is still good. So, Dracula still holds up, I believe. It is just very weird and has a very unique storytelling. Yeah, Frankenstein actually holds up pretty well too. I read a little bit of that. I can't even say recently anymore. I gotta continue it. But in the bit that I read, it was still enjoyable to read. So some of these stories still hold up. And in my own experience trying to read through these Sherlock Holmes stories, these hold up pretty well as well. They are still dated, of course, but they still hold up as a solid, enjoyable story. I have yet to read any cult classics, honestly. I mean, what would be considered a cult classic that's a classical? I think Lord of the Flies is PD as well. That would be a trip to go through again. What do you mean PD? I actually, so I did have to read Lord of the Flies in school. Public domain? You're probably right. I had to read Lord of the Flies in school, and it sucked me the hell in. I got really into that. The oldest book I've read is Song of the Lioness Quartet by Tamora Prince, and those are like late 90s. I've also read a lot of Poe's short stories, and I enjoyed those. They weren't very deep, but I enjoyed them. It was one hell of a twisted book. Probably how it stuck out to so many people. Yeah, it really was. But it was still really interesting, because I was already reading a lot of older books by that point. And then there was The Lovely Bones, which was, I'm gonna be frank, that book was just straight up boring. Hold up, monocle. Excuse me, it is ironical. I'll have you know. Anyways, where was I? Here it was. There will call upon you tonight, at 8:15, it said. Why wouldn't you just say... Why wouldn't you just spell that out? Whatever. Fancy writing. It has a shit ton of sex, even the struggle snuggle, I shall say, scene has some undertones in it. Entire time I was thinking, is the author just showing her barely sky fetishes to the world here? I mean, you've read Dracula, right? That's like a lot of sexual repression in that book. Like, if you know anything about Bram Stoker as a person, he was kind of weird. He wrote a good story and a good book, but he was weird, and it kind of shows in his writing. I didn't mean to derail the reading by having a stroke, by the way. Don't worry. You have counterpoints about vampires and intrusively seductive monsters, so you had an excuse. They're only as seductive as he makes them. And it's alright, Zat. I hope you enjoy. And it's okay. And honestly, me reading through this and you guys talking, I talk back to you, it's okay for me to pause and chat with y'all. A gentleman who desires to consult you upon a matter of the very deepest moment. Your recent services to one of the royal houses of Europe have shown that you, who are one who may safely be trusted with matters which are of importance, which can hardly be exaggerated. This account of you will have from all quarters received. Be in your chambers then at that hour. Do not take amiss if your visitor wears a mask. Lovely Bones is about a teenage girl who, spoiler here, dies, becomes a ghost, watched her sister have sex with her boyfriend, then possessed a lesbian, so she can have sex with the boy she had a crush on. I don't think those last two bits work well together. That's concerning. That's like Wonder Woman fucking 52, whatever that was called, concerning. Because just because you possess someone's body doesn't mean you should be allowed to have sex in that body. That's not okay. I had to read that shit in high school the entire time. I was like, what the fuck am I supposed to take away from this? What? Is indeed a mystery, I remarked. What do you imagine that it means? I have no data yet. Wait, hold on. I gotta pronounce that just right. I have no data yet. It is a capital mistake to theorize before one has data. Insensibly, as one begins to twist faces to suit theories, instead of theories to suit facts. But the note itself, what do you deduce from it? Book tried to be really artsy with description, was like, no, bitch, you're trying to get off a lot here. I carefully examined the writing, the paper upon which it was written. And I just rant over it. Segue back to story. Apologies, it's okay. The man who wrote it was presumably well-to-do, I remarked, endeavoring to imitate my companion's process. Such paper could not be bought under a crown, half a crown a packet. It is particularly strong and stiff. Particular, that is the very word, said Holmes. It is not an English paper at all. Hold it up to the light. I did so. I saw a large E with a small G and a P, and a large G with a small T woven into the texture of the page. What? That's supposed to spell something? What do you take of that? Asked Holmes. The name of the maker, no doubt, or his monogram, rather. That's a lot of letters for a monogram. Not at all. The G with the small T stands for... Oh god, I'm gonna butcher the hell out of this name. Gesell Losjakov. Gesellschaft. It's Gesellschaft. That is how you spell the word I am butchering right now. Gashloff, which is German. Oh, it's German. I never would have guessed. For company is a customary contraction like other co, p, or the co stands for paper. Now, for the EG, let us glance at our Continental Gazetter. He took down a heavily brown volume from his shelves. El Gonzales, here we are, El Greya. It is in a German-speaking country, in Bohemia, not far from Carlsbad. Remarkable as it is being a scene of death, as Waldenstein, and for the numerous glass factories and paper mills. My boy, what do you make of that? His eyes sparkled, and he sent up a great blue, triumphant cloud from his cigarette. Blue? Why is the smoke blue? What the fuck? What cigarettes did you buy that have blue smoke? The paper was made in Bohemia, I said. Precisely, and the man who wrote the name. Note is German. Do you note the particular construction of the sentence? Is the account of you we have from all quarters received. A Frenchman or Russian could not have written that. It is the German who was so uncourteous to his vowels. It only remains, therefore, to discover what is wanted by this German who writes upon Bohemian paper and prefers wearing a mask to showing his face. And here he comes, as if not mistaken, to resolve all of our doubts. As he spoke, there was a sharp sound of horses' hoofs and grating wheels against the curb, followed by a sharp pull at the bell. Holmes whistled. A patter by the sound, said he. Yes, he continued, glancing over the window. A nice little Buckingham and a pair of beauties, 150 guineas apiece. Goes money in this case, Watson, if there's nothing else. I think I had better go home. A little bit, doctor. Stay where you are. I am lost without my bonsoir. It looks promises to be interesting. It'd be a pity to miss it. But your client, never mind him. I may want your help, and so may he. Here we come. Sit down in that armchair, doctor, and give us your best attention. Damn, Holmes missed him. That's actually kind of sweet. A slow and heavy step, which has been heard upon the stairs in the passage, paused immediately outside the door. Then there was a loud and authoritative tap. Come in, said Holmes. A man entered who had hardly been less than 6 feet 6 inches. Jesus Christ, dude is huge in height, with the chest and limbs of Heracles. Okay, it spells it Hercules, but I'm so used to trying to correct myself now. Fine, I'll say the limbs of Hercules. His dress was rich with a richness which would, in England, be looked as akin to bad taste. Heavy bands of astrakhan were slashed across the sleeves and front of the double-breasted coat. Hercules? Nay, Heracles! I feel like that's a reference I'm not getting. While the deep blue cloak, which was thrown over his shoulders and lined with flame-covered silk. I first misread that as flame-covered milk. No, just me being dumb. But it sounds familiar. And secured at the neck with a brooch which consisted of a single flaming beryl. Boots which extended halfway up his calves. That's what I first misread it as that. I first misread silk as milk, and I'm like, wait, what? Because the word flaming is directly below it, so my mind kind of just ripped the M from that. In fact, the full thing I was misreading before I read it. It was flame-colored milkberry. Because my eyes just kind of went diagonal. Or my reading process just kind of went diagonal. His calves and which trimmed at the top, with rich brown fur, completing the impression of barbaric opulence, which was suggested by his whole appearance. He carried a broad-brimmed hat in his hand, while he wore across the upper part of his face, extending down past the cheekbones, a black, visored mask, which he had apparently adjusted that very moment, for his hand was still raised to it as he entered. From the lower part of his face he appeared to be a man of strong character, with a thick, hanging lip, and a long, straight chin suggestive of a resolution pushed to the length of obstinity. Hold on, you gotta drink water. Oh, great. Now I gotta give him a voice. It's a deep, harsh voice with a strongly marked German accent. Oh no. Oh no. I have to do a German voice. Mein Lieben. You had my note, he asked with a deep, harsh voice and a strongly marked German accent. I told you that I would come. That's not German enough, is it? I don't know. He looked from one to the other, as if uncertain which to address. Pray, take a seat, said Holmes. This is my friend and colleague, Dr. Watson, who is occasionally good enough to help me with my cases. Whom have I the honor to address? Dude, that's high praise from Holmes, Watson. I'd wear that like a badge of honor. Just think of the medic from Team Fortress 2. I've never played Team Fortress 2, so I've only really heard their voices through other people's skits, not their actual voices. You may address me as Count von Karma. Are you kidding me? Count von Karm. Dude is literally one letter away from being an Ace Attorney character. A Bohemian nobleman. I understand that this gentleman, your friend, is a man of honor and discretion, whom I may trust with a matter of the most extreme importance. If not, I should much prefer to communicate with you alone. I rose to go, but Holmes caught me by the wrist and pushed me back into the chair. It is both or none, said he. Whom may stay before the gentleman anything which you may say to me. Or you may say before this gentleman anything which you may say to me. Damn, Holmes being a real bro in this moment. That's rare. It's super rare. The Count shrugged his broad shoulders. Then I must begin, said he. My binding you both to absolute secrecy for years. At the end of that time, for 2 years at the end of that time, the matter will be of no importance. At present, it is not too much to say that it is such a weight as it may influence upon European history. I promise, said Holmes. And you will use this mask, continued our strange visitor. The august person who employs me wishes his agent to be unknown to you, and I may confess up at once that the title by which I have called myself is not exactly my own. I was aware of that, said Holmes dryly. The circumstances are of such delicacy, and every precaution has to be taken to quench what might grow. Or is that quash? No, I think it's quench. What might grow to be an immense scandal and seriously cauterize on the reigning families of Europe. To speak plainly, the matter implicates the great house of Ormenstein, hereditary king of Bohemia. I was also aware of that, muttered Holmes, settling himself down to his armchair and closing his eyes. Holmes just like, man, just tell me the new info, please. Our visitor glanced with some apparent surprise at the languid, lounging figure of the man who had no doubt depicted to him as the most If Reasoner, most energetic agent in Europe. Holmes slowly reopened his eyes and looked impatiently at the giant client, or the gigantic client. If your majesty would... Oh wait, hold on. I'm trying to see who's talking here. Oh, okay, this is Holmes. Your Majesty, we consent to state your case. He remarked, I should be better able to advise you. The man sprang from his chair and paced up and down the room in an uncontrollable agitation. Then, with a gesture of desperation, he tore the mask from his face, hurled it upon the ground. You're right, he cried. I am the king. Why would I attempt to conceal it? Well, indeed. Holmes is so unimpressed. This is the sassiest I've ever seen Holmes, and I fucking love it. Holmes, bro, could you hurry your ass up? Could you get to the case? I don't give a fuck who you are. Unless you being the king affects this case, I frankly could not care less. In fact, once this case is over, you will leave my memory. As with everyone else. Watson's the only one deserving to be in my memory. Aw, thanks. Well, that and the street kids. Thanks? Your Majesty, had you not spoken before, I was aware that I was addressing Wilhelm. Oh my god, his name is Wilhelm. Gottsring, Sigmar von Ormenstein, Grand Duke of Castle Falster, and Honorary King of Bohemia. But you can understand. Cue Wilhelm scream, exactly. That's what popped in my head too. But you can understand, said our strange visitor, sitting down once more and passing his hand over his high white forehead. You can understand that I am not a cunt. Started doing such business in my own person. Yet the matter was so delicate that I could not confine it to an agent without putting myself in his power. I have come incognito from the plague for the purpose of consulting you. Then play consult. I'm gonna play in my head when this guy inevitably dies or something. The facts are, briefly, these. I mean, usually by the time these cases start, anyone who's dead is usually already dead. And I do say usually, so there is a chance he'll die. Some 5 years ago, during a lengthy visit to Rorsar, I made the acquaintance of the well-known adventurer Irene Alder. The name is no doubt familiar to you. Kindly look her up in my index, Doctor. I have a book of people I have to, remember. Imagine. Damn. I know Holmes forgets almost everything, but goddamn. I just imagine if he really doesn't like you, he just doesn't write your name down. It's just to thoroughly insult you in the most genuine way possible when he meets you again. Who are you? Muttered Holmes without opening his eyes. He's leaving this here. Is that the Wilhelm scream? For many years he adopted a system of docketing all paragraphs concerning men and things, though it was difficult to name a subject or a person of which he had not at once furnished information. In his case I found her biography sandwiched in between that of a Hebrew rabbi and that of a staff commander who had written a monograph upon the deep-sea fishes. Let me see, said Holmes. Born in New Jersey in the year 1958. Colorado. La Scala. Prima donna imperial opera of the Warsaw. Yes, retired from the operatic stage. Ah, living in London, quite so. Your Majesty, as I understand, became entangled with this young person, wrote her some compromising letters, and now desirous of getting those letters back. Precisely so, but how? Was there a secret marriage? None! No legal papers or certificates? None. Then I fail to follow, Your Majesty. If this young person should produce her letters for blackmailing or other purposes, how should she prove their authenticity? There is the writing! Forgery! My private notepaper stolen. My own seal imitated. My photograph bought. We were both in the photograph. Oh dear, that is very bad. Your Majesty has indeed committed indiscretion. I was mad, insane. You have compromised yourself seriously. I was only Crown Prince then. I was young, but 30 now. Dude, I know the standards were different back then, but that hurts. It must be recovered. We have tried and failed. This guy's like, come back for everything. Holy shit. Yes, your Majesty must pay. It must be bought. She will not sell. Stolen then. 5 attempts have been made. Twice burglary, and my pay ransacked her house. Once we diverted her luggage when travelled. Twice when she was waylaid. There have been no results. No sign of it. Absolutely none. I just love it if this thing just like, I don't want this anymore. Toss in the fire. Holmes laughed. It's quite a pretty little problem, said he. But a very serious one, returned the king, reproachfully. Very, indeed. What does she propose to do with the photograph? To ruin me! But how? I am about to be married. So I have heard. To died. A Lothman von Saxon, oh, Jesus Christ, these names. Saxonman and Gain, second daughter of the King of Scandinavia. You may know the strict principles of our family. She is herself the very soul of delicacy. A shadow of a doubt as to my conduct would bring the matter to an end. Marlene Alder threatens to send them the photograph, and she will do it. I know that she will do it. You will not know her, but she has a soul of steel. It's the face of the most beautiful woman, the mind of the most resolute man. Rather than I should marry another woman, there's no links to which she would not go. None. You're sure she has not sent it yet? I am sure. And why? Because she has said she would send it on the day when the betrothal was publicly proclaimed. That'll be next Monday. Oh, then we have 2 days left, said Holmes with a yawn. That is very fortunate. So we can see your boner through your pants the more you continue. Please move on. Oh wait, no, that's probably what Holmes said. Sir, we can see your boner through your pants the more you continue. Oh, please, move on with your point. Watson just sitting in the corner. Or just the Krillin of this. Oh, thank God, someone said it. Oh, then we have 3 days left, said Holmes with a yawn. That is very fortunate, as I have 1 or 2 matters of importance to look into, just as you're present. Your Majesty will, of course, stay in London for the present. Certainly you will find me at the London under the name of Count von Karm. Then I shall drop you a line to let you know how we progress. Pray do, so I shall be all anxiety. Then, as to the money. You can have carte blanche. Or you have carte blanche? Do you take American Express? It's said with like an italics font. So it made me think something like that. Absolutely. I don't know what that means though. Let's look that up. Maybe it's like an IOU or something. Complete freedom to act as one wishes or thinks best. What a random thing to state. I'll tell you, daughter, I will give one of the provinces of my kingdom to have that photograph in full present expenses. The king took a chasuble of their bag from under his cloak and laid it on the table. There are 300 pounds in gold and 700 in notes, said he. Holmes scrawled a receipt upon a sheet of his notebook and handed it to him. And mademoiselle's address. Okay, hold on. Holmes, what are you gonna do with a fucking kingdom province? Jesus Christ. It is Briny Lodge, Serpentine Avenue, St. John's Wood. Holmes took a note of it. Another question, said he. Was the photograph of a cabinet? It was. Then good night to you, your majesty, and I trust that we shall soon have some good news for you. And good night, Watson, he added as the wheels of the royal brougham rolled down the street. If you will be good enough to call tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock, I shall like to chat this little matter over with you. Chapter 2. At 3 o'clock precisely I was at Baker Street, but Holmes had not yet returned. The landlady informed me that he had left the house shortly after 8 o'clock in the morning. I sat down beside the fire, however, with the intention of waiting for him, however long it might be. I was already deeply interested in his inquiry, for though it was surrounded by none of the grim and strange features which were associated with the two crimes which I had already recorded, still the nature of the case, the exalted station of his client, gave it a character of his own. Indeed, apart from the nature of the investigation which my friend had on hand, there was something in his masterly grasp of situation, and his keen, incisive, incisive? I want to say incisive. Let's. Intelligent, analytical, clear thinking, accurate, or sharply focused. It might be incisive if reasoning, which made a pleasure to me to study his system of works, and to follow the quick, subtle methods by which he disentangled the most inexorable mysteries. So accustomed was I to his invariable success, that it was the very possibility of his failure had ceased to enter my head. It was close upon 4 before the door opened, and a drunken-looking groom, ill-kept and side-whiskered, with an inflamed face and disreputable clothes, walked into the room. Accustomed as I was to my friend's amazing powers in the use of disguises, I had to look 3 times before I was certain it was indeed him. With a nod he vanished into the bedroom, whence he emerged in 5 minutes, tweed-suited and respectable as old. Putting his hands into his pocket, he stretched out his arms in front of the fire and laughed heartily for some minutes. "Well, really," he cried, when he choked and laughed again, until he's obliged to lie back, limp and helpless in the chair. "What is it?" "It is quite too funny. I am sure you will never guess how I employed my morning, and what I ended up by doing. I can't imagine. I suppose that you have watched the habits and perhaps the house of Miss Irene Adler." "Quite so, but the sequel was rather unusual. I will tell you, however. I left the house a little after 8 o'clock this morning. The character of a room out of work. There is a wonderful symphony and a Freemasonry among horsey men, but one of them, and you will know all that there is to know. He soon found Briny Lodge. It is a Banjora village, with a garden at the back, but built out in front right up to the road, 2 stories. Chubb locked to the door. Large sitting room on the right, well furnished, with large windows almost to the floor, and those preposterous There's English windows fasteners which a child could open. Behind there was nothing remarkable, save that a passage window could be reached from the top of the coach house. I walked round it and examined it closely from every point of view, without noting anything else of interest. Then I lounged down the street and found, as I expected, that there were mules in a lane which were undone by one more of the garden. I lent the others a hand in rubbing down their horses, received and exchanged 2 pence, a glass of half and half, 2 fills of sharp tobacco, and as much information as I desired about Miss Adler, to say nothing of half a dozen other people in the neighbourhood, in whom I was not in the least bit interested, but whose biographies I was compelled to listen to. "And what of Irene Adler?" I asked. "Oh, she has turned all men's heads down in that part. But she is the littlest thing under a bonnet on this planet, to say Serpentine Muse, a man. She lives quietly, sings at concerts, drives out at 5 every day, and returns at 7 sharp for dinner. Seldom goes out at other times, except when she sings. Has only one male visitor, but a good deal of him. He is dark, handsome, and dashing, never calls less than once a day, and often twice. He is a Mr. Godfrey Norton, of the Inner Temple. See the advantages of a cabman as of a confidant. They've driven him home a dozen times from Serpentine Mews, and no horror about him. When I listened to all they had to tell, I began to walk up and down near Briony Lodge once more to think over my plan of campaign. This Godfrey Norton was definitely an important factor in the matter. He was a lawyer. That sounds ominous. What was the relation between them, and what the object of his repeated visits? Was she his client, his friend, or mistress? The former he had probably transferred the poor girl to his keeping. If the latter, it was less likely. The issue of the question depended whether I could continue my work at Briony Lodge, or turn my attention to the gentleman's chambers in the Temple. It was a delicate point, and it widened the field of my inquiry. I feel that I bore you with these details, but I've yet to let you see my little difficulties, if you ought to understand the situation. "I'm following you very closely," I answered. I was still balancing the matter in my mind, when a hansom cab drove out to Briony Lodge, and a gentleman sprang out. He was remarkably handsome, dark, aquiline, and moustached, evidently the man of whom I had heard. He appeared to be in a great hurry, shouted at the cabman to wait, and rushed past the maid who opened the door with the air of a man who is thoroughly at home. He was in the house for about half an hour. I could catch a glimpse of it in the windows of the sitting room, pacing up and down, talking excitedly and waving his hands. Of her I could see nothing. Presently he emerged, looking even more flurried than before, as he stepped up to the cab, pulled a gold watch from his pocket, looked at it earnestly. "Drive like the devil," he shouted. "First to Gross and Hankins in Regent Street, and then the Church of St. Monica in Edward Road. Half a guinea if you do it in 20 minutes. Away they went, and I just wondered whether I should not do all to follow them. When up the lane came a neat little landau. The coachman, with his coat only half buttoned, and his tie under his ear, while all the tags of his harness were sticking out of the buckle. I hadn't pulled up before she shot out the door and into it. I had glimpsed of her at the moment, but she was a lovely woman, and with a face that a man might die for. "The Church of St. Monica, John," she cried, "and half a sovereign if you reach it in 20 minutes. No, was quite too good to lose, Watson. I was just balancing whether I should run for it or whether I should perch behind her letterman. And when a cab came through the street, the driver looked twice at such a shabby fare, but I jumped in before he could object. 'The Church of St. Monica,' I said, 'and half a sovereign if you reach it in 20 minutes. It was 25 minutes to 12. It was clear. Of course, it was clear enough. What was in the wind? My cabby drove past. I don't think I've ever driven faster. The others were there before us. The cabin Lauren with her steaming horses went from the door as I arrived. I paid the man. I'd heard in the church. There was not a soul there save the two whom I followed. And it's a blessed clergyman who seemed to be exploitating it now. There were all three standing in a knot in front of the altar. I lounged up aside, like any in the idler who had lurked into a church. Suddenly, to my surprising, three at the altar faced round, and Gorfley Norton came running as hard as he could. Thank God, he cried. You do. Come. What then? I asked. Come, man. And come, only 3 minutes, or it won't be legal. That is the weirdest thing to say. I think I get what's happening, but that is so weird. It must be in 3 minutes and not a minute longer. It sounds like the two are getting married and they need a witness. I was half dragged up to the altar before I knew where I was, and I found myself muttering responses which were whispered in my ear and vouching for things which I knew nothing, and genuinely assisting in the secure tying of Adeline Adler's spinster to Gottfried Notion's bachelor. It was, oh yeah, they were. It was all done in an instant. There was a gentleman thanking me on one side, a lady on the other. Like, when you've confused Holmes, you know you're doing something weird. Or was it? Okay. Well, the clergyman beamed on me in front. It was the most preposterous position in which I had found myself in life. It was the thought of it that started me laughing just now. Holmes, I'm the eccentric protagonist, and even I'm weirded the fuck out. How did I get dragged into being the witness of a shotgun marriage that happened in 20 minutes? How are you guys late to your own goddamn wedding? I mean, even if you're just going to, like, well, maybe not shotgun, that technically doesn't exist yet. But if you're just going to, like, have a quick ceremony like this, you guys really pushed it to the limit here. I heard both of you shout, get there in 20 minutes or less. What is this? A fucking marriage shouldn't have to be done in the order time of a fucking pizza delivery. Just imagine the one SpongeBob meme, Mermaid Man. You're by now, Chris the Bride. I don't remember that, but it sounds familiar. It seems there have been some informality. Here about the license, the clergyman absolutely refused to marry them without a witness of some sort. That my lucky appearance. Vince saved the bridegroom from having to sally out into the streets in search of a best man. The bride gave me a sovereign, and I mean to wear it on my watch chain in memory of the occasion. Damn, these guys have like no friends. And if they had to get some random dude off the street as a witness. Also, let's take a look at this. Did you reunite our heroes? No, but I'm married. Oh, goodness. Classic SpongeBob. Good time. Did you manage to solve the case? No, but I attended a wedding. No, but I'm married. It is a very unexpected turn of affairs, said I. And what then? Well, I found my plans were seriously menaced. I looked as if the pair might take an immediate departure, and so necessitate very prompt and energetic measures on my part. At the church door, however, they separated, he driving back to the temple, and she to her own house.
I shall drive out in the park at 5 as usual. He said as she left him. I heard no more. They drove away in different directions, and I went off to make my own arrangements. Which are? Some cold beef and a glass of beer, he answered, ringing the bell. I have been too busy to think of food. I'm likely to be busier still this evening. By the way, Doctor, I shall want your cooperation.
With finishing the beef?
Of course.
I shall be delighted.
You don't mind breaking the law?
Not in the least.
Nor running the chance of arrest?
Not in a good case. Or not in a good cause.
Oh, the cause is excellent.
Then I'm your man.
I was sure that I might rely on you.
What is it you wish?
When Mrs. Turner had brought you in the tray, I will make it clear to you. Now,
he said as he turned hungrily on the simple fare that our landlady had provided.
I must discuss it while I eat, for I have not much time. It's nearly 5 now. In 2 hours we must be on the scene of action. Miss Irene, or Madame rather, returns from a drive at 7. We must be at the Brinley Lodge to meet her.
And what then? Watson saw a face worse than death. The current Watson wouldn't say that. He just got married. Damn. Oh, that's so mean. And what then? Oh, wait, no, No, I didn't.
You must leave that to me. I have already arranged what is to occur. There is only one point on which I must insist. You must not interfere, come what you may. You understand?
I am to be natural, or to be neutral.
To do nothing whatever. There will probably be some small unpleasantries. Do not join in it. It will end in my being conveyed into the house. 4 or 5 minutes after, the sitting window will open. You are to station yourself close to that window.
Yes.
You will to watch for me. I will be visible to you.
Yes.
And when I raise my hand, so you will throw into the room what I give you to throw, and will at the same time rise the cry of fire. You quite follow me?
Entirely. He just hands him the rest of this meal. Just hands him the fucking remainders of his lunch.
I want you to throw this at me. Near that point, for I will certainly be more famished.
Have sandwiches been invented yet?
I do believe so. But I do not desire bread. Take my table scraps, peasant.
Mr. Holmes, that doesn't sound like you.
Sorry, I might have been hanging out with Gilgamesh too much. Demeaning others seems to come all too naturally for him. It's nothing very formidable,
he said, taking a long, cigar-shaped roll from his pocket.
It's an ordinary plumber's smoker optic, fitted with a cap at either end to make it self-lighting. Your task is confined to that. When you raise your cry of fire, it will be taken up by quite a number of people. You may then walk to the end of the street, and I will join you in 10 minutes. I hope that I have made myself clear.
I am to remain neutral, to get near the windows, to watch you, and at the signal throw in this object, then to rise a cry of fire, to wait you at the corner of the street.
Precisely.
Then you may entirely rely on me.
That is excellent, I think. Perhaps it's almost time that I prepare the new role I have to play.
He disappeared into his bedroom, and returned in a few minutes, in the character of an amenable and simple-minded nonconformist clergyman. His broad black hat, and his baggy trousers, his white tie, sympathetic smile, and general look of peering and benevolent curiosity were such as Mr. John Harrod alone would have quelled. It was not merely that Holmes had changed his costume, his expression, his manner. His very soul seemed to be varied with each fresh part that he assumed. The Age took lost a fine actor, even as science lost an acute reasoner when he became a specialist in a crime. It was 6:15 when we left Baker Street, and still wanted 10 minutes to the hour when we found ourselves in Serpentine Avenue. It was already dusk, and the lamps were being lighted as we paced up and down in front of Bryony Lodge, waiting for the coming of its occupant. The house was just as such as I had pictured it from Holmes's sufficient description, but the locality appeared to be less private than I expected. On the contrary, for a small street in a quiet neighborhood, it was remarkably animated. There was a group of shabbily dressed men and smoking and laughing in a corner. A scissor grinder with his wheel, and 2 guardsmen who were flirting with a nurse girl, and several well-dressed young men were lounging up and down with cigars in their mouths.
"You see,"
remarked Holmes as he paced to and fro in front of the house,
"this marriage rather simplifies matters. The photographer becomes a double-edged weapon now, and chances are that she will be as averse to it being seen by Mr. Godfrey Norton or the photograph becomes a double-edged weapon. What is a photographer? The chances are that she'll be as averse to it being seen by Mr. Godfrey Norton as our client is to come into the eyes of his princess. Now the question is, where are we to find the photograph?"
Where indeed?
"It is most unlikely that she carries it about with her. It is cabin size, too large for easy concealment about a woman's dress. He knows the king is capable of having her waylaid and searched. 2 attempts of the sort have already been made. We may take it, then, she does not carry it about with her."
"Where, then?"
"Her banker or her lawyer. There is that double possibility, but I incline to think neither. Women are naturally secretive, and they like to do their own secreting. Why should she hand it over to anyone else? She can trust her own guardianship, but she could not tell what indirect or political influence might be brought to bear upon a businessman. Besides, remember she's resolved to use it within a few days. It must be where she can lay her hands upon it. It must be in her own house."
"But it has twice been burgled."
"Pshaw! They did not know how to look."
"But how will you look?"
"I will not look."
"What then?"
"I will get her to show me."
"But she will refuse."
"She will not be able to. But I hear the rumble of wheels. It is her carriage. Now carry her. My orders to the letter."
The Holmes voice is rough in the throat. So, look some things over here. All right. As he spoke, the gleam of the sidelights of a carriage came around the curve of the avenue. It was a smart little landau which rattled up to the door of Bressany Lodge. As it pulled up, one of the loafing men at the corner dashed forward to open the door in hopes of earning a copper, but was elbowed away by another loafer who had rushed up with the same intention. A fierce quarrel broke out, which was increased by the 2 guardsmen, who took side with one of the loungers, and by the scissor grinder, who had equally hot upon the other side. A blow was struck, and in an instant the lady, who had stepped from her carriage, was the center of a little knot of flushed and struggling men, who struck savagely at each other with their fists and sticks. Damn, simps. Holmes dashed through the crowd to protect the lady. Just as he reached her, he gave a cry and dropped to the ground, the blood running freely down his face. As his fall, the guardsmen took to their heels in one direction, and the loungers in the other. All number of better-dressed people who had watched the scuffle without taking part in it crowded in to help the lady and to attend the injured man. Eileen Adler, as I will still call her, has hurried up the steps, but she stood at the top with her superb figure outlined against the light of the hall, looking back into the streets.
Is that poor gentleman? Is the poor gentleman much hurt?
He's dead.
No, there's life.
No, there's life in him, shouted another, but he'll be gone before you can get him to a hospital.
He's such a brave fellow, said the woman. They would have had in the lady's purse and watched if it hadn't been for him. They were a gang and a rough one, too. He's breathing now.
Is he dead? Poke him with a stick, make sure. He can't lie in the street. Maybe we'll bring him in, Mom. Marm? That's a weird way to spell madam or ma'am. Goddamn. And if that's a shorthand for mademoiselle, that is weird.
Shirley, bring him into the sitting room. There's a comfortable sofa. This way, please.
Slowly and solemnly, he was borne into Bryony Lodge and laid out in the principal room, which I still observed the proceedings from my post by the window. The lamp had been lit, but the blinds had not been drawn, so I could see Holmes as he lay upon the couch. I do not know whether he was seized with compunction at that moment, but for the part he was playing. But I know that I never felt more heavily ashamed of myself in life when I saw the beautiful creature against whom I was conspiring, or the grace of the kindliness in which she waited upon the injured man. Yet it was the blackest treachery to Holmes to draw back now from the part before he had entrusted me. I hardened my heart, took the smoke rocket from under my ulster. After that, I thought we are not injuring her. We are but preventing her from injuring another. That's right, Watson. Rose before hose. Just before they leave.
Oh, and Watson, should you ever doubt upon seeing her, just remember the old adage, rose before hose.
Holmes had sat upon the couch. I saw him in motion like a man who is in need of air. A maid rushed across and threw open the window. The same instant, I saw him raise his hand, and at the signal I tossed my rock into the room with a cry of fire. The word was no sooner out my mouth than the whole crowd of spectators, well dressed and ill, gentlemen, ulsters, and servant maids, joined in the general shriek of fire. Thick clouds of smoke curled through the room, and out at the open window. I caught a glimpse of rustling figures, and a moment later the voice of Holmes, from which assuring them that it was a false alarm. Slipping through the shouting crowd, I made my way to the corner street. In 10 minutes was rejoiced to find my friend's arm in mine. They get away from the scene of uproar. He walked swiftly and in silence for some few minutes, till he turned down one of the quiet streets which led towards Edward Road.
You did it very nicely, Doctor,
he remarked.
Nothing could have been better. It is all right.
You had the photograph.
I know where it is.
And how did you find it?
She showed me, as I told you she would.
I'm still in the dark.
I do not wish to make a mystery. The matter,
he said, laughing.
The matter was perfectly simple. Yes, of course. So that everyone in the street was an accomplice. They were all engaged for the evening.
I guessed as much.
Then, when the room broke out, I had little moist red paint in the palm of my hand. I rushed forward, fell down, caused my face and made a piteous spectacle. It is an old trick.
That also I could fathom.
Then they carried me in, and she was bound to have me in. What else could she do? And into her sitting room, which was the very room which I suspected. It lay between that and her bedroom. I was determined to see which. They laid me on the couch. I motioned for air. They compelled to open the window, and you had your chance.
How did that help you?
Well, it's all important. When a woman thinks that her house is on fire, her instincts to once rush to the thing which she values most is perfectly overpowering impulse. And I have more than once taken advantage of it. In the case of Darling's substitution scandal, it was of use to me. Also, in the Onsworth Castle business, a married woman grabs her baby, an unmarried one reaches for her jewel box. Now it's clear to me that our lady of today had nothing in the house more precious to her than what we are in quest of. She would have rushed to secure it. The alarm of fire was admirably done. The smoke and shouting were enough to shake nerves of steel. She was responded beautifully. The photographs in the recess was behind a sliding panel, just above the right bell pull. She was there in an instant, and I caught a glimpse of it. She half threw it out. When I cried out that it was a false alarm, she replaced it, glanced at the rocket, and rushed from the room. I have not seen her since. I rose, and making my excuses, escaped from the house, and hesitated whether to attempt to secure the photograph at once. But the coachman had come in, and he was watching me narrowly, seemed safer to wait. A little over presences. Later on, when all. And now, I asked, our quest is practically finished. I shall go with the king tomorrow. And with you, if you care to come with us. You will be shown to the sitting room to wait for the lady, but it is probable that when she comes, she may neither of us nor the photograph. It might be a satisfaction to His Majesty to regain it with his own hands. And when will you call? At 8 in the morning. She will not be up, so that we shall have to leave for you. Besides, we must be prompt, for this marriage may mean a complete change in our life and habits. I must wire to the king without delay.
We had reached Baker Street and had stopped at the door. He was searching his pockets for the keys, in which someone passing by said, "Good night, Mr. Sherlock Holmes." There were several people on the pavement at the time. The greeting appeared to come from a slim youth in an ulster who hurried by.
"I've heard that voice before,"
said Holmes, staring down the dimly lit street.
"Now I wonder who the deuce that could have been." Shame I forget everyone I encounter. Sucks to be them.
I slept at Baker Street that night, and was engaged upon our toast and coffee in the morning when the King of Bohemia rushed into the room.
"You really have it, or you have really got it,"
he cried, grasping Sherlock Holmes by either shoulder and not looking eagerly into his face.
"Not yet."
"But you have hopes."
"I have hopes."
"Then come, I am all impatient to be gone."
"Must have a cab."
"No, my boatman is waiting."
"Then I will simplify matters. Descendants or..."
We descended and started off once more for Briony Lodge.
"Irene Adler is married,"
remarked Holmes.
"Married? When?"
"Yesterday."
"But to whom?" "To an English lawyer named Norton."
"But she could not..." "I love him."
"I even hope that she does."
"Why in hopes?"
"Because it would spare your Majesty all fear of future annoyance. If the lady loves her husband, she does not love your Majesty. She does not love your Majesty. There is no reason why she would interfere with your Majesty's plan."
"It is true, and yet, well, I wish she had been my own station. What a queen she would have made." He laughed to a moody silence, which was not broken until we drew upon Serpentine Avenue. The door of Briony Lodge was open, and an elderly woman stood upon the step, who watched with sardonic eye as she stepped from the borgman. "Mr. Sherlock Holmes, I believe."
"I am Mr. Holmes,"
answered my companion, looking at her with a questioning and rather startled gaze. "Indeed, my mistress told me that you were likely to call. She left this morning with her husband at 5:15 train for King's Cross. I was for the continent."
"What?"
Sherlock Holmes staggered back, white with charging and surprise.
"Do you mean that she has left England?"
"Never to return."
"In the paper? All in the papers?"
"And the papers?" asked the king hoarsely. "All is lost."
"We shall see."
He pushed past the servant and rushed in to the drawing room, followed by the king and himself. Furniture was scattered about in every direction, with dismantled shelves and open drawers. The lady had hurriedly ransacked them before her flight. Holmes rushed at the bell pull toward her back, a small sliding shutter. Bludgeon hand pulled out a photograph and a letter. The photograph of Irene Adler herself in evening dress, and the letter superscribed to Sherlock Holmes esque, to be left till called for. My friend tore it open, and with all three reading it together, it was dated at midnight of the preceding night and ran into the way. I wasn't sure like this be considered vandalism. I mean, at this point, he's not committing vandalism. Because she was the one that tossed her own house this time. What he would be considered is breaking entry or petty theft. Now, last night could have been potential, or the previous day. Now that could be potential arson. My dear Mr. Sherlock Holmes, you really did very well. Took me in completely, till after the alarm of fire, I had no suspicion. Then when I found how I had betrayed myself, began to think I had been warned against you months ago. I had been told that if the king employed an agent, it'd certainly be you. Your address had been given me, yet with all this, you made me reveal what you wanted to know. Even after I became suspicious, I found it hard to think evil of a dear, kind old clergyman. But you know I've been trained as an actress myself. Male costumes is nothing new to me. I often take advantage of the freedom which you give. I sent John the coachman to watch you, ran upstairs, got into my walking clothes, I call them, came down just as you departed. Well, I followed you to your door, and so made sure I was really an object of interest to the celebrated Mr. Sherlock Holmes, and I rather imprudently wished you good night, and started for the temple to see my husband. So why shouldn't we arrest you for this felony?
Because I'm the protagonist.
We both thought the best resource was flight, and when persuaded by so formidable an antagonist, so you will find the nest empty when you call tomorrow. As to the photograph your client may rest in peace. I love him and loved by a better man than he. The king may do what he will without hindrance from one whom he has cruelly wronged. I keep it only to safeguard myself, the pressure, and to persevere a weapon which will always secure me from any steps in which he might take in the future. I leave a photograph which he might care to possess. I made, dear Mr. Sherlock Holmes, very truly yours, Irene Norton, and Nee Adler. Sherlock Holmes is written in the U.S. nickname be Florida.
Well, we got a lingerie shot. Will that satisfy you?
King Bohemia pitching.
What a woman! Oh, what a woman!
Cried the King Bohemia, which had all three read the epistle.
Did I not tell you how quick and resolute she was? Would she not have made an admirable queen? It is not a pity that she is not on my level. Would I have seen the lady? She seems indeed to be a very different level to your majesty,
said Holmes coldly.
I am sorry I have not been able to bring your majesty's business to a more successful conclusion.
Okay, Holmes, I know the king isn't going to pick up on it, but that is some next level shade. Holy shit. Oh, God. I just know the king is not going to pick up on that.
On the contrary, my dear sir, cried the king, nothing can be more successful. I know that her word is inviolable. The photograph is now as safe as it were in the fire. I'm glad to hear your majesty say so. I am immensely indebted to you. Pray you tell me in what way I can reward you. This ring!
He slipped an emerald snake ring from his finger, held it out in the palm of his hand.
Your majesty has something which I should value even more highly.
You have but to name it.
This photograph.
The king stared at him in amazement.
I mean photograph, he cried. Certainly, if you wish it. I thank you, your majesty, and there's no more to be done in the matter. I have the honor to wish you a very good morning.
He bowed, and turning away without observing the hand which the king had stretched out to him, he set off in my company for his chambers. Damn, just taking the porn and leaving. And that was how a great scandal threatened to affect the kingdom of Bohemia. How the best plans of Mr. Sherlock Holmes was beaten by a woman's wit. He used to make a merry over the cleverness of women. I have not heard him do it of late. While he speaks of Irene Adler, he refers to her photograph, but was always under the honorable title of the woman. He's a bit objective, but I think I get where he's coming from. Alright, that's the end of the first short story. I'm gonna leave the third room. I must inspect this photograph for about an hour. Damn. Holmes just, taking the only good thing there. Alright, the second story. Actually, before that, let's check some things real quick. Section 3 is really short, though, which is kind of shocking. You know, things. I am glad that I'm, starting to pick up on Holmes's tics and methodology and, what he actually means when he says certain things. Hey, for Halloween, read H.P. Lovecraft, but his stories are, relics of the 1920s. I know they're hella racist. Well, I at the very least know he is hella racist. Well, honestly, not all the time. Towards the end of his life, he let go of his racist views. I mean, that's nice to have some character development. Sucks he still had it a majority of his life, though. He even attributed his racism being forced isolation from his parents. I can't say I'm surprised at all from that. A lot of racist views can start from family upbringing like that. Like his mother was insane. Like, insane as in a horrible human being insane, or insane as in undiagnosed mental illness insane. I mean, both are bad, but something narcissistic and abusive, probably schizophrenic. Yeah, that would check out. He constantly messed with his record so he couldn't join the army. Ooh, oh no, that's not good at all. Ugh. Anyways, the second story. The Red-Headed League. Like, Lovecraft had a rough dude. His mother's abuse made it hard for him to even hold down a relationship. Was his dad just not in the picture? Or potentially just as bad? Or a pushover? I think he died early on in his life. Mother took most of his biographies. I mean, I guess being dead, someone would have to stand in for most of that. But we'll see how October goes, just in general. Because there's lots of potential cool things we could do. I could continue Dracula, Frankenstein. I could maybe read H.P. Lovecraft. I don't know about that yet. Very uncertain on that. Like I said, he lost his racist traits when he went around and made friends with people. You mean you guys hunt monsters from outer space? No, why would you think that? Uh, don't ask. Yeah, I don't know what we're going to be doing every single day. I'm not very good at scheduling. My mood shifts, of course. So, don't know what we'll be reading or playing each and every day. I decide things on a whim because I'm terrible at scheduling things. Because I don't like making promises I can't keep, for one. I'm very bad at this. I'm not very good at what I do, clearly. I wish I was. It would take a lot more self-discipline than I have. Oh, goodness. Anyways, the Red-Headed League. I had called upon my friend Mr. Sherlock Holmes one day in the autumn of last year, and found him deep in conversation with a very stout, florid-faced elderly gentleman with fiery red hair. With an apology for my intrusion, I was about to withdraw when Holmes pulled me abruptly into the room and closed the door behind me. Oh, hey, one of the greatest attorney cases are based off this one.
You could not have possibly come at a better time, my dear Watson,
He said cordially. I'm afraid that you were engaged.
So I am, very much so.
Then I can wait in the next room.
Not at all. This gentleman, Mr. Wilson, has been my partner and helper in many of my most successful cases, and no doubt he'll be of utmost use to me and yours as well.
What? Who's talking? Did they typo Watson's name, or is this some other dude? There's gotta be some other dude. He must be referring to the older dude, having been a former colleague. The stout gentleman and half rose from his chair and gave a bob of greeting, with a quick little questioning glance from his small, fat, encircled eyes.
Try this at all,
said Holmes, relapsing into his armchair, putting his fingertips together, as was custom with his judicial moods.
I know, my dear Watson, you share my love for all that is bizarre outside the conventions and humdrum routine of everyday life. You have shown your relish for it by the enthusiasm which has prompted you to chronicle, and if you will excuse my saying, in so somewhat embellish so many of my own little adventures.
Without me shake my head. Love you, Doppel. Aww, love you too, Ghastly. Are you off work yet? Already got about an hour still. Working, just wanted to pop in and say hello. Oh, Mr. Mustache wants you to try to force me to play a game called Faith. It's very disturbing looking. Anyways, hi. I'm sure you're doing great. You've I read that. Your cases have indeed been of the greatest interest to me, I observed.
You will remember that I remarked the other day, just before we went to the very simple problem presented by Miss Mary Sutherland, that for the strange effects and extraordinary combinations it must go to life itself, which are always far more daring than any effort of the imagination. A proposition which I took the liberty of doubting. You did, Doctor. Nonetheless, you must come round to my views, for otherwise I shall keep on piling fact upon fact on you until your reason breaks down under them, acknowledges me to be right. Now, Mr. Jibbers, Wilson here.
Okay, so it wasn't a typo. That is his name.
Has been good enough to call upon me this morning to begin a narrative which promises to be one of the most singular, which I've listened to for some time. He has heard me remark the strangest, most unique things are very often connected, not with the larger, but with the smaller crimes, and occasionally indeed, where there is room for doubt whether any positive crime has been committed. As far as I have heard, it is impossible for me to say whether the present case is an instance of crime or not, but the course of the events is certainly among the most singular that I have ever listened to. Perhaps, Mr. Wilson, you will have the kindness to recommence your narrative. I ask you not merely because my friend, Mr. Watson, has not heard the opening part, but also because the peculiar nature of the story makes me anxious to have every possible detail from your lips. As a rule, when I have heard such slight indication of the course of events, I am able to guide myself by the thousands of other similar cases which occur in my memory. In the present instance, I am forced to admit the facts are, to the best of my belief, unique.
The portly client puffed out his chest, with the appearance of some little pride, pulled a dirty, wrinkled newspaper from the inside pocket of his great coat. He glanced down the advertisement column, with his head thrust forward, the paper flattened out upon his knee. I took a good look at the man, and endeavored after the fashion of my companion to read the indications which might be presented by his dress or appearance. I did not gain very much, however, by my inspection. Our visitor bore every mark of being an average, commonplace British tradesman, obese, pompous, and slow. He wore rather baggy grey shepherd check trousers, a not overly clean black flocked coat, unbuttoned in the front, and a drab waistcoat with a heavy brassy Albert chain, and a square piercer bit, it of metal dangling down as an ornament, a frayed top hat, and a faded brown overcoat with a wrinkled valet collar laid upon a chair beside him. Altogether, look as I would, there was nothing remarkable about the man, save his blazing red head and his expression of extreme caution and discontent upon his features. Sherlock Holmes' quick eye took in my occupation. He shook his head with a smile, and he noticed my questioning glances.
With the obvious fact that he has some time done manual labor, that he takes stuff, or that he takes snuff, that he is a Freemason.
What do you mean that he takes snuff? That he takes drugs, or he takes dead people? I don't know what that means. We're gonna look that up. Tobacco that you snort. Not too common these days since no one wants to get nose cancer. Okay. So we used to snort tobacco? Oh, God.
That he is a Freemason and he's been in China, that he has done a considerable amount of writing lately. I can deduce nothing else.
Wait, was that a Holmes statement or was that a Watson statement? Oh, that was a Holmes statement. Okay. Mr. Jesper Wilson then started up in his chair, with his forefingers upon the paper, his eyes upon my companion. How in the name? Oh, hold on. Let me try to get a good voice for this. On the name of good fortune did you know all that, Mr. Holmes? He said. How did you know, for example, I did manual labour? It's as true as gospel, for I'd been a ship carpenter. Your hands, my dear sir, your right hand's quite a sight larger than your left. You work with it, and the muscles are more developed. Well, the snuff, then. The Freemasonry? I won't insult your intelligence by telling you how to read that, especially as, rather against the strict rules of your order, use an arc and compass best pen. Of course, I forgot about that, but the writing. What else can be indicated by the right cuff? So very shiny for 5 inches, the left one with a smooth patch near the elbow, where you rest upon your desk. Well, but shorter. The fish that you have tattooed immediately above your rightness could only have been done in China. I have made a small study of tattoo marks and contributed to the literature of the subject. The trick of staining fish scales of delicate pink quite particular in China. When in addition I said Chinese corn hanging from your watch chain, the matter becomes even more simple. Mr. Jesbins Wilson laughed heavily. Why, never, said he. I thought at first you had done something clever, but I see there's nothing in it after all. I begin to think, Watson, said Holmes, that I make a mistake in explaining I'm an ignorum pro magnificent. You know, in my poor little reputation, such as it is, will suffer shipwreck if I am so candid. Can you not find the advertisement, Mr. Wilson? Yes, I got it now, he said, with his thick red fingers planted halfway down the column. There it is. This is what it's all about. You can read it for yourself. I took the paper from it and read as follows. To the Red-Headed League, on account of the bequest of the late Escapist Hobson of Lebanon, on Pennsylvania, USA, there is now another vacancy open which entitles a member of the Red-Headed League to a salary of $4 a week for purely nominal service. All red-headed men who are sound in body and mind, and above the age of 21 years and are eligible. Apply in person on Monday at 11 o'clock to Duncan Ross at the offices of League 7, Pope's Court, Fleet Street. Got to go for a bit. Girlfriend wants to go on a walk. Try to jump back in a bit later. Alright, I hope you have fun. Or at least an enjoyable time. And if you don't come back, we'll have a wonderful day. What on earth does this mean? I forget they use this as an as an adverb. Or yeah, no. Yeah, an adverb. I ejaculated after I twice read over the extraordinary announcement. Nope. This is going on the list. This is going on the list. On the list. I have a list of weird things. No, that one was only for Dracula, so let's make a new one for Sherlock Holmes. I'm sure I'll come up with a lot of other ones. Oh, hydrate. All right, will do. Thanks for the hydrate. Trust me, I need to. That Sherlock Holmes voice is rough on me. Tell you what. Same though. I've been keep bashing some overlays all afternoon. Yeah, dude, drink some water. Holmes chuckled and wriggled in his chair, as was his habit, but in high spirits.
"It is a little off the beaten track, isn't it?" said he. "And now, Mr. Wilson, off you go at the scratch, and tell us all about yourself, your household, the effect which the advertisement has upon your fortunes. You will first make a note, Doctor, of the paper and the date."
Here's the morning in Chronicle of April 27, 1890, just 2 months ago.
"Very good. Now, Mr. Wilson."
Well, it's just as I've been telling you, Mr. Holmes, said Jasper Wilson, mopping his forehead. I have a small pawnbroker's shop at Cobden Square near the city. It's not a very large affair, and as of late years, it's not done more than just giving me a living. I used to be able to keep 2 assistants. Now I can only keep 1. I'd have a job to pay him, but he's willing to come for half wages so as to learn the business.
"What's the name of this obliging youth?"
said Holmes. His name's Vincent Scorbling. He's not such a youth either. It's hard to say his age. I should not wish a smarter assistant. Mr. Holmes, and I know very well that you could do better. He couldn't do better himself, and twice what I'm able to give him. But after all, if he's satisfied, why shall I put my idea in his head?
"Why, indeed, it would seem more fortunate to have been an employee who comes at the full market price, nor a common experience among employers in this age. I don't know that your assistant is not as remarkable as your advertisement."
All he is his faults, too, said Wilson. Never was such a fellow for photography, snapping away with the camera when he ought to be improving his mind, then diving down to the cellar like a rabbit in the hole to develop his pictures. That's his main fault, but on the whole he's a good whacker. There's no voice in him.
"And he's still with you, I presume?"
Yes, sir. He and a girl 14 who does a bit of simple cooking and keeps the place clean. That's all I have in the house, for I'm a widower and never had any family. We live very quietly, sir, 3 of us. We keep a roof over our head, pay our debts if we do nothing more.
"The first that put out was that advertisement, Colleen. He came down to the office just this day, 8 weeks ago, with the very paper in hand, and he says, as I wish to the Lord, Mr. Wilson, that I was a
Oh, wait, no, I think this is... Well, the thing that put us out was that advertisement, Spudling. He came down to the office just these days, 8 weeks, when this very paper in his hand says, I wish this to the Lord, Mr. Wilson, that I was a red-headed man.
Why is that?
I asked. Why, he says, here's another vacancy in the League of Red-Headed Men. It's worth quite a little fortune to any man who gets it. I understand there are more vacancies than there are men. That trustees are at the wit's end. What to do with the money? My hair will only change colour. Here's a nice little crib all ready for me to step into. What is it then? I asked. You see, Mr. Holmes and I are very stay-at-home men. That my business came to me instead of my having to go to it. I was often weeks on end without putting foot over the doormat. That way I didn't know much what was going on outside. I was always glad of a bit of news. Have you not heard of the League of Red-Headed Men? He asked with his eyes open. Never. Well, I wonder at that. Well, you're eligible yourself for the vacancies. What are they worth? I asked. I made a couple of hundred a year. The work is slight and need not interfere very much with one's other occupations. Well, you can easily think that makes me prick opened my ears, for the business had not been over good for some years, and an extra couple of hundred it would have been very handy. Tell me all about it, said I. Well, said he, showing me the advertisement, you can see for yourself that the league has a vacancy, and there is the address where you should apply for particulars. Far as I can make out, the league is founded by an American millionaire, Ethketz Hopkins, Hopkins, who was very particular in his ways. He was himself red-headed, and a great sympathy for all red-headed men. So when he died, I knew it was founded that he left an enormous fortune of hands to the trustees, with instructions to apply the interest to a providing of easy birth to men whose hair is that of that colour. From all I hear, it's a splendid pay, and very little to do. But, said I, there would be millions of red-headed men who would apply. Not so many as you might think, he answered. You see, it's very really confined to Londoners and the grown men. This American I'd start from London when he was young, and wanted to do the old town a good turn. Then again, I have heard there's no use who shall apply if your hair is light red or dark red or anything but real bright, blazing fire red. Now, if you cared to apply, Mr. Wills, then you would just walk in, but perhaps it would hardly be worth your why? Worth your while to put yourself out for the way of the sake of a few £100. No, it isn't. Hold on. That is if it is a fact, gentlemen. As you may see for yourself, my hair is a very full, rich tint, so it might seem that if there was to be any competition in the matter, I stood as good a chance as any man that I ever met. Vincent Swalling seems to know so much about it that I thought he might prove useful, so I just ordered him put up the shutters for the day and come right away with me. He was very willing to have a holiday, so we shut the business up, started off for the address I have given us in the advertisement. I never hope to see such a sight as that again, Mr. Holmes. From north, south, east, and west, every man who had a shade of red in his hair had tramping into the city to answer the advertisement. Fleet Street was choked with red-headed folks, and the Pope's Court looks like a cluster of orange barrels. I should not have thought there were so many in the whole country as were brought together by a single advertisement. Every shade of colour they were. Straw, lemon, orange, brick, either settler, liver, clay, but as sporadically said, there are not many of the real vivid flying colour tint. When I saw how many were waiting, I was giving up in despair, but Sprawley would not hear of it. How he did it I can never imagine, but he pushed and pulled and butted until he got me all the way through the crowd right up to the steps which led to the office. There was a double strawing upon the stairs, some going up in hopes of coming back down, and some coming back down dejected. We wedged in as well as we could, as soon as we found ourselves in the office.
Your experience has been a most entertaining one,
remarked Holmes as the client paused and refreshed his memory with a huge pinch of snuff. Maybe don't do that in the middle of your story.
Ray, continue a very interesting statement.
I was nothing in the office but a couple of wooden chairs and a deal table, behind which sat a small man lad that even redder than mine. He said a few words to each candidate as he came up. Then he always managed to find some fault in him which would disqualify him. Getting a vacancy didn't seem to be such a very easy matter after all. However, when our turn came up, the little man was much more favourable to me than any of the others. He closed the doors when we entered so that he might privatise word with us. This is Mr. Jezebel Wilson, said my assistant, and he's willing to fill a vacancy in the league. And he's admirably suited for it, the other answered. There's every requirement. I cannot recall when I've seen anything so fine. He took a step back, cocked his head on one side, gazing at my hair until I felt quite bashful. Then suddenly plunged forward, wrung my hair, and congratulated me warmly on my success. It would be injustice to hesitate, said he. You will have, I'm sure, excuse me for taking such obvious precaution. With that, he seized my hand in both his hands, tugged till I up in pain. There's water in your eyes, he said as he released me. I perceive that all should be, but we have to be careful, for we have twice been deceived by wigs and once by paint. I can tell you by the tale it was a cobbler's wax which will disgust you with human nature. I stepped over the window and shouted through it. Through it at the top of his lungs, the vacancy was filled. A groan of disappointment came up from below, and the folks all trooped away in different directions until there was not a red-head to be seen except my own and that of the manager's. My name, said he, is Mr. Duncan Ross, and I myself am one of the pensioners upon the fund left for our noble benefactor. Are you a married man, Mr. Wilson? Have you a family? I answered that I had not. His face fell immediately. Dear me, he said gravely, this is serious indeed. I'm sorry to hear you say that. The fund, of course, for the propagation, spread the redheads as well for the maintenance. It's extremely unfortunate you should be a bachelor. My face lengthened at this, Mr. Holmes, for I thought I was not to have the vacancy after all, but after thinking for a few minutes he said it would be all right. In the case of another, said he, the objection might have been fatal. You stretch to the point in favour of a man who's with a head of hair of yours. When shall you be able to enter upon your new duties? Well, it's a little awkward, for I have a business already, said I. Oh, never mind about that, Mr. Wilson. I should be looking after that for you. What would be the hours? 10 to 2. I asked. 10 to 2. Now, a pawnbroker's business is mostly done of an evening, Mr. Holmes, especially Thursday and Friday evenings, was just before payday, so it would suit me very well to earn a little in the mornings. Besides, I know that my assistant was a good man, and that he would see to anything that turned up. That would suit me very well, said I, and the pay is £4 a week, and the work pure or nominal. What do you call purely nominal? Well, you have to be in your office, or at least in the building, all the time. If you leave, you forfeit your pension forever. Will is very clear upon that point. Don't comply with the conditions if you budge from the office during that time. It's only 4 hours a day. I should not think of leaving, said I. No excuse will avail, said Mr. Duncan Ross. Neither sickness nor business nor anything else. There you will stay, or you lose your billet. And the work is to copy out the Encyclopedia Britannica. The first volume of it is in the press. You must find your own ink, pens, and blotting paper. We provide this chair and table. Will you ready tomorrow? Certainly, I answered. Then goodbye, Mr. Doppel Wilson, and let me congratulate you once more on the important position in which you have been fortunate enough to gain. He bowed me out of the room, and I went in home with my assistant, hardly knowing what to say or do. I was so pleased at my own good fortune. Well, I thought over the matter all day, and by evening I was in low spirits again, for I had quite persuaded myself the whole affair might be some great hoax or fraud, though what it is object might be I could not imagine. It seemed altogether past belief that anyone could make such a will, or that they would pay such a sum for doing something so simple as copying over the Encyclopedia Britannica. Vincent Spaulding did what he could to cheer me up, but by bedtime I had reasoned myself out of the whole thing. However, in the morning I determined to have a look at it anyhow. So I brought a penny bottle of ink, and with a quill pen and 7 sheets of foolscap paper, I started off for Puck's Court. Well, to my surprise and delight, everything was right as possible. Table was set up ready for me, and Mr. Duncan Ross there to see that I got fairly to work. He started me off upon the letter A, and then he left me, but he could drop in from time to time and see all was right with me. At 2 o'clock he bade me good day, complimented me upon the amount I had written, and locked the door of the office after me. Why are we copying the dictionary? The printing press exists by now, and is in very prominent use. It has even evolved a few times over. Why are we doing this? This went on day after day, Mr. Holmes, and on Saturday the manager came in and planked down 4 golden sovereigns for my week's work. Was the same next week and the same week after. Every morning I was there at 10, every afternoon left at 2. By decree, Mr. Duncan Ross took in coming in only on some morning, and then after a time he did not come in at all. Still, of course, I never dared leave the room for an instant, for I was not sure when he might come, and the billet was such a good one, and suited me so well, that I would not risk the loss of it. 8 weeks passed by like this, and I had written about abbots and archery and armour and architecture and electrica, and hoped with diligence that I might be on the bees before long. Cost me something in full scrap, but I had been pretty nearly filled a shelf with my writings, and suddenly all business came to an end.
To an end?
Yes, sir. No later than this morning, I went to my work, and as usual, 10 o'clock, with the door shut and locked. A little square cardboard hanging on the middle of the panel with a tag. Here it is. You can read it yourself. He held up a piece of white cardboard, the size of a sheet of a note card, and read in this fashion: The Red-Headed League is dissolved. October 9th, 1890. Sherlock Holmes and I surveyed this curt announcement and were full face behind it. The comical side of the affair so completely overtopped every other consideration that we both burst out in a roar of laughter. I cannot say this is anything very funny, cried our client, flushing up to the roots of his flaming hair. If you can do nothing better than laugh at me, I can go elsewhere.
No,
cried Holmes, shoving him back into the chair from which he had half risen.
I really wouldn't miss your case for the world. It is most refreshingly unusual. There it is, if you will excuse me saying, something just a little funny about it. Pray, what steps do you take when you found the card upon the door?
I was staggered, sir. I did not know what to do, and then I called at the offices round, but none of them seemed to know anything about it. Finally, I went to the landlord, who was an accountant living on the ground floor, and I asked him if he'd tell me what had become of the Red-Headed League. He said he'd never heard of such a body. Then I asked him who Mr. Duncan Ross was. He answered that name was new to him. Well, said I, the gentleman I've known before. What, the red-headed man? Yes. Oh, said he, his name is William Morris. He was solicitor using my room as a temporary convenience till his new premises were ready, and moved out yesterday. Where can I find him? Oh, at his new offices. He did tell me the address, yes, 17 King Edward Street, near St. Paul. I started off, Mr. Holmes, but when I got that address, it was a manufacturer of artificial kneecaps. Not one of it had ever heard of Mr. William Morris or Mr. Duncan Ross.
And what did you do then?
I went home to Saxon Corbwood Square, took the advice of my assistant, but he could not help me in any way. He could only say that if I had waited, I should hear by post. But that was not quite good enough, Mr. Holmes. I did not wish to lose such a place without a struggle, so I had heard that you were good enough to give advice to poor folk who were in need, and I came right away to you.
And you did very wisely, said Holmes. Your case is extremely remarkable. I shall be happy to look into it. From now, for what you have told me, I think that it is possible the graver issue hangs from it than might be at first sight appears.
Grave enough, said Mr. Jezbez Wilson. Why, I've lost £4 a week.
As far as you are personally concerned, remarked Holmes, I do not see that you have any grievance against the extraordinary league. On the contrary, you are, I understand, richer by some £30, to say nothing of the minute loss in knowledge in which you have gained on each subject which comes under the letter A. You have lost nothing by them.
Oh, sir, but I want to find out about them. Who they are, what the object is playing. This plank, if it was a plank, pardon me, pretty expensive joke for them, cost him £32.
I shall be able to clear up these points for you. And at first, one or two questions, Mr. Wilson. The assistant of yours who first called upon your attention to the advertisement has long been with you.
About a month, then.
How did he come?
Answer to an advertisement.
Was he the only applicant?
No, I had a dozen.
Why did he pick him? Why did you pick him?
I was handy and will come cheap.
At a wage, in fact.
Yes.
What was he like in this business? and sparkling.
Small, stout bit, very quick in his ways, no hair on his face, no not short of 30. Has a white splash of acid upon his forehead. Holmes sat up in his chair in considerable excitement.
I thought as much, said he. Have you ever observed his use a piece for earrings?
Yes, sir. He told me the gypsy had done it for him when he was a lad.
Said Holmes, sinking back into deep thought. He's still with you?
Oh, yes, sir. Oh, he just left him.
That's your business been attended to in your absence.
I've complained of, sir. I never very much to do of a morning.
That will do, Mr. Wilson. I shall be happy to give you an opinion upon the subject in the course of a day or two. Today is Saturday, and I hope that by Monday we may come to a conclusion.
Well, Watson,
said Holmes, when our visitor had left us, what do you make of it all?
I make nothing of it, I answered frankly. It is the most mysterious business.
As a rule, said Holmes, the most bizarre thing, in case the less mysterious it proves to be. It is your commonplace, fearlessness.
My bad.
Featureless climb, which was really puzzling, is commonplace. His face, it is almost difficult to identify, but must be prompt over this matter.
What are you going to do then? I asked.
To smoke,
he answered.
It is quite a 3-pipe problem. I beg that you won't speak to me for 50 minutes.
He curled himself up in the chair, with his thin knees drawn up to his hawk-like nose. And there he sat, with his eyes closed and his black clay pipe, thrusting out like the bill from some strange bird. I had come to the conclusion that he had dropped asleep, and indeed was nodding myself, when he suddenly sprang out of his chair, the gesture of a man who had made up his mind and put his pipe down upon the mantelpiece.
Sir Atherton, please, I've seen James Hall this afternoon, he remarked. What do you think, Watson? Could your patient spare you for a few more hours?
I have nothing to do today. My practice is never very absorbing.
Then put on your hat and come. I'm going to the city first. We can have some lunch on the way. I observe that there are a good deal of German music on the program, which is rather more of my taste than Italian or French. It is introspective, and I want to introspect. Come along.
We travelled by the underground as far as Aldersgate, and a short walk took us to Saxon Coburn Square, the scene of a singular story which is listened to in the morning. It was a poky little gentle place, where 4 lines of dingy 2-storied bricked houses looked out into a small railed enclosure, where a lawn of weedy grass and a few clumps of faded laurel bushes made a hard fight against a smoke-laden and unencourageable atmosphere. 3 gilt balls and a brown broad with Jezebel Wilson in white letters upon the corner house announced the place where our red-headed client carried on his business. Sherlock Holmes stopped in front of it, with his head on one side, and looked it all over, with his eyes shining brightly between puckered lids. Then he walked slowly up the street, and then down again to the corner, still looking keenly at the houses. Finally he returned to the pawnbroker, having thumped vigorously upon the pavement with his stick 2 or 3 times. He went up to the door and knocked. It was instantly opened by a bright-looking, clean-shaven young fellow, who asked him to step in.
"Thank you," said Holmes. "I only wish to ask you how you go from here to Stan."
"Third right, 4th left. I'm back. What I miss? You missed the starting plot thing of the Redheaded League. Basically, they're really hiring people with brilliant red hair, and they only had 1 vacancy. The client came in, and he got the job. He was basically just from the hours of 10 to 2 every morning for 8 weeks. He was copying the Dictionary Britannica for £4 a week extra, and they would watch his shop during that time too. And suddenly, this day, they just said they were disbanded. The place that he was doing it, he found, was not under the name of the name the man gave him that hired him on. So he wanted to investigate it. That's the short version. Also, he means water. Whiskey, water, same thing. Not the same thing. Too late. Didn't clarify. Chug, chug, chug. Also, the client has two people working for him. This young dude who showed him the original advertisement, and a young maid. And there were a lot of people at the interview, like a ton. But we shall see how this goes. Well, third right, fourth left, answered the assistant, promptly closing the door. Smart fellow, that, observed Holmes, who walked by. He is, in my judgment, the fourth smartest man in London. For daring, I am not sure. He is not claimed to be a third. I have known something of it before. Evidently, said I. Mr. Wilson's assistant counts for a good deal in his mystery of the Red-Headed League. I'm sure that you inquired your way merely in order that you might see him. Not him. What then? These of his trousers. And what did you see? What I expected to see. Why did you beat the pavement? My dear doctor, there is time for observation, not for talk. We are spies in enemy country. We know something of Saxe-Coburn Square. Let us now explore the parts which lie beyond. The road on which we found ourselves as we turned around the corner from the retired Saxe-Coburn Square presented as a great contrast to it as the front of a picture does to the back. It was one of the main arteries which conveyed the traffic of the city to the north and the west. The roadway was blocked with the immense stream of commerce flowing in a double tide, inward and outward. The footpaths were black with the hurrying swarm of pedestrians. It was difficult to realize that we looked at the line of fine shops and stately businesses, his premises, that were really abutted on the other side upon the faded, stagnant square which we had just quitted. Let me see, said Holmes, standing at the corner and glancing along the line. I should like just to remember the order of the houses here. It is a hobby of mine to have exact knowledge of London. There is more ignorance than a tobacconist, the linen newspaper shop, the Coburg branch of the city, and Sorbonne Bank, the vegetarian restaurant, and McFarlane's carriage building the port. That carries us right on to the other block. And now, doctor, we've done our work. It is time we've had some play. A sandwich and a cup of coffee. Then off to the violin land, where all is sweetness and delicacy and harmony. There is no red-headed clients to vex us with their conundrums. Holmes, have you had your heroin yet today? Because it sounds like you've had your heroin today. No. It is just the ecstasy of mystery right now. All right. My friend was an enthusiastic musician, being himself not only a capable performer, but a composer of no ordinary merit. All the afternoon he sat in the stalls wrapped in the most perfect happiness, gently waving his long thin fingers in time to the music, while his gently smiling face and languid dreamy eyes were as unlike those of Holmes the stealth hound. Holmes, the relentless, keen-witted, ready-handed criminal agent, as it was possible to conceive. In his singular character the dual nature alternately assisted itself, and extreme exactness and astuteness are represented, as I often thought, the reaction against the poetic and contemplated mood which occasionally predominated in him. The swing of his nature took him from extreme languor to the devouring energy, and as I knew well, he was never so truly formal as when for days on end He had been lounging in his armchair amid his improvisations and black letter editions. Then it was that the lust of the chase would suddenly come upon him, that his brilliant reasoning powers would rise to the level of intuition until those who were unacquainted with his methods would look askance at him as on a man whose knowledge was not that of other mortals. When I saw him that afternoon so enwrapped in the music of St. James's Hall, I felt that an evil time might be coming upon those who he had set himself to hunt.
You must go home, no doubt, Doctor,
he remarked as we emerged. Yes, it would be as well.
And I have some business to do, which will take some hours. There's business at the Corbett Square is serious.
Why serious?
A considerable crime is in contemplation. I have every reason to believe that we shall be in time to stop it. But today, being Saturday, rather complicates matters. I shall want your help tonight.
At what time?
10 will be early enough.
I shall be at Baker Street at 10.
Very well. And I say, Doctor, there may be little danger, so kindly put your armor, or there may be some little danger, so kindly put your armor revolver in your pocket.
He waved his hands and turned on his heel, disappeared in an instant amongst the crowd. Hold on. Okay. I trust that I am not more dense than my neighbors, but I always oppressed with a sense of my own stupidity in my dealings with Sherlock Holmes. Here I had heard what he heard, I had seen what he had seen, and yet from his words it was evident that he clearly not only had happened, but what was about to happen. While to me the whole business was still confused and grotesque, as I drove home to my house in Kensington, I thought it all over. From the extraordinary story the red-headed copier of the encyclopedia down to the visit in Sexton Corbin Square, and his ominous words, with which he had parted from me. What was this nocturnal expedition, and why should I go armed? Where were we going, and what were we to do? I had the hint from Holmes that this smooth-faced pawnbroker assistant was a formidable man, a man who might play a deep game. I tried to puzzle it out, but gave it up in despair, and set the matter aside until the night should bring an explanation. It was 9:15, and I started from home, and made my way across the park, and so through Oxford Street to Baker Street. Two hansoms were standing at the door, and I entered the passage. I heard the sound of voices from above. One entering his room, I found Holmes in an animated conversation with two men, one of whom I recognized as Peter Jones, the official police agent, while the other was a long, thin, sad-faced man with a very shiny hat, an oppressively respectable frock coat.
Ah, our party is complete,
said Holmes, buttoning up his pea jacket and taking his heavy hunting crop from the rack.
Watson, I think you know Mr. Jones of Stoughton Yard. Let me introduce you to Mr. Merriweather, who is be our companion in tonight's adventure. Also, Dogman, do not forget.
I believe that is a reference that is a couple 100 years too early.
Oh, right. Silly me. We're hunting in couples again, Doctor. You see.
We are hunting in couples again, Doctor, you say? Said Jones in a consequential way.
Orphan is a wonderful man for starting a chase. All he wants is an old dog to help him do the running down.
I hope. Alrighty. Let me see. My clairvoyance for future references is paramount. Just be glad you won't be around for such to appear. Wait, gotta do that in Holmes' voice.
My clairvoyance for future references is paramount. Just be glad you won't be around for such to appear.
I gotta give a good voice to Meriwether here. One that's different from these ones. What the bloody hell is Big Chungus? uh,
Well, you see, it started as a joke from Jim Sterling. He'd using it, and it evolved into a monster of its own as what the people of the future call a meme, using a very fat version of a cartoon bunny called Bugs.
but what does it mean?
You know, I'm not even sure the people who know what it means know what it means. I'm not even sure one James Stephanie Sterling is even sure what it means, and they came up with it.
Anyways, I need a good voice for Meriwether. Yeah, let's give him a more relaxed, stonerish thing.
I hope a wild goose may not prove to be the end of my chase,
observed Mr. Meriwether gloomily.
Am I a place considerably confident in Mr. Holmes, sir?
The police agent said loftily.
He has his own methods, which are, if you won't mind me saying so, a little too theoretical and fantastic. But he has the makings of a detective in him. Not too much to say that once or twice in that business of Chateau murder, Agra treasure, he's been more nearly correct than the official force.
Oh, if you say so, Mr. Jones, it is all right. The stranger with deference.
So I confess that I missed my rubber.
What? That cannot mean the same thing then that it does now.
The first Saturday night for 27 years I've not had my rubber.
I just looked at him.
Dude. No. Meriwether.
What? Mr. Mustache Nunny!
I think you will find.
Hold on. No, that's bothering me too much. That's too fucking weird. What does that mean? Refers to the cards. Yeah, okay, refers to cards. Holmes said I had brought a pack of cards in my pocket. I thought it was pretty carry that you might have your rubber after all. Rubber in this context refers to the cards. Nobody calls them that. At least not anymore. Holy shit. He was referring to playing cards? What? Alright, so that's going on the list of weird things that were said in Sherlock Holmes. Oh god.
I think you'll find, said Sherlock Holmes, you'll play for a higher stake tonight than you have ever done yet. And the play will be more exciting. For you, Mr. Merriweather, the stake will be some £30,000. And for you, Jones, to get the man upon whom you wish to lay your hands. John Clay, murderer, a thief, smasher, and forger. He's a young man, Mr. Merriweather, but he's as head of his profession. I would remark, I had more bracelets on him than on any criminal in London. He's a remarkable man, this young John Clay. His grandfather was a royal dig. He himself was burned at Eton in Oxford. His brain is cut in his fingers. I thought we might sign of him every turn. He never know where to find the man himself. He'll crap a crib in Scotland one week, and be raising money to build an orphanage in Cornwall the next. I've been on his track for years, though I've never set eyes on him myself. I hope that I have the pleasure of introducing you, or I hope that I may have the pleasure of introducing you tonight. I've been one or two little turns along with Mr. John Clay. I agree with you that he is the head of his profession. It is past 10, however, and quite time that we started. If you will take the first answer, then Watson and I will follow in the second.
Sherlock Holmes was not very communicative during the long drive, and lay back in the cab humming the tunes which he had heard in the afternoon. We rattled through an endless labyrinth of gas-lit streets until we emerged in Farrington Street.
We're close now,
my friend remarked.
This fellow Merriweather was a bank director and personally interested in the matter. I thought it.
I swear to God, you need this for reward so you can react appropriately. Oh boy, oh no. Desktop audio off. Let's give it a listen. The classic nunny. I need to get like some more of these redeems. There's a bunch of cheap reaction ones for channel points. Or bit rewards. I don't know. I don't know nothing about monetizing. Probably not since I spammed the shit out of it. I know some people have it tied to bits to prevent spamming. I'd probably have to decide something like that. Where were we? Right here.
This fellow Mr. Merriweather is a bank director and personally interested in the matter. I thought it as well to have Jones with us also. He's not a bad fellow, though an absolute imbecile in his own profession. He's one positive virtue. He's as brave as a bulldog, as tenacious as a lobster. He gets his claws upon anyone. Here we are. They're waiting for us.
We had reached the same crowded thoroughfare in which we had found ourselves in the morning. Our cabs were dismissed, following the guidance of Mr. Merriweather. We passed down a narrow passage and through a side door, which he opened for us. Within there was a small corridor, which ended in a very massive iron gate. It was also open and led down a flight of winding stone steps, which terminated at another formidable gate. Mr. Merriweather stepped to light a lantern and conduct us down a dark, earth-smelling passage. So after opening a third door, into a huge vault or cellar, was piled all round with crates and massive boxes. Oh, I think I know what's happening. Okay, so before we get any further, I think, of course, this person they're after, whose name was John Clay, I think he took on this guise in the pawnbrokers and the whole photograph thing that he's been going into the basement. to deal with. I think he's been digging a tunnel, and he used the Red-Headed League thing, publishing, and he has like some cohorts. He published an advertisement, and to be just profitable enough to draw a crowd, to give it air of legitimacy, and then make sure his guy was the only one that was hired, because that was his mark, or so that he was out, so they could have more people come in and dig this tunnel, so that eventually they could either A, steal from the pawnbroker, or B, I think Holmes mentioned there's a bank nearby, so they might have been digging there. That is my analysis.
You are not very vulnerable from above,
Holmes remarked as he held up the lantern and gazed about him.
Nor from below,
said Mr. Merriweather, striking his stick along the flags which lined the floor.
Why, dear me, it sounds quite hollow,
he remarked, looking up in surprise.
I must really ask you to be a little more quiet,
said Holmes, severely.
You've already imperiled the whole success of our expedition. Might I beg that you will not have the goodness to sit upon one of those boxes and not to interfere?
The soul of Mr. Merriweather perched himself upon a crate, with a very injured expression upon his face, while Holmes fell upon his knees upon the floor, and with the lantern and a magnifying glass began to examine minutely the cracks between the stones. A few seconds sufficed to satisfy him, and for he sprang to his feet and put his glass in his pocket.
We have at least an hour before us,
he remarked.
Well, they can hardly take a step until the good pawnbroker is safely in bed. Then they will not lose a minute, for the sooner they do the work, the longer they will have for their escape. We are at present, Doctor, as no doubt you have divined, in the cellar of the city branch of one of the principal London banks.
Ooh, yeah, I was right. Mr. Merriweather and the chairman of directors.
With Merriweather, the chairman of the directors will explain to him that there are reasons why the most daring criminals of London should take a considerable interest in this cellar at present.
It is our French gold, whispered the director. We have had several warnings that an attempt might have been made upon it. Your French gold? Yeah. We have occasion some months ago to strengthen our resources, borrow that for the purpose of 30,000 Napoleons from the Bank of France. It became known that we had never an occasion to unpack the money, and it's still lying in the cellar. The crate upon which I sit contains 2,000 Napoleons, packed between the layers of lead foil. Our reservoir of bullion is much larger at the present than it usually kept in a single branch office. The directors have had misgivings upon the subject.
Which were very justified, observed Holmes. Now it is time to rearrange our little plan. I expect that within an hour the matter will go to a head. In the meantime, Mr. Merriweather, you must put the screen over that dark lantern.
And sit in the dark?
I'm afraid so. I put a pack of cards in my pocket and thought that if we were a patre contra, you might have your rubber after all. But I see that your enemy preparations have gone so far that we cannot risk the presence of light. And first of all, we must choose our positions. They are daring men, and though we should take them at disadvantage, they may do us some harm, unless we are careful.
God damn it, I gotta sit in the dark like an enemy protagonist.
Ironic, since I made a VTuber reference earlier.
Yeah, Mr. Holmes, I still don't know what that is.
Don't worry about it. Unless we are careful, I shall stand behind this crate You conceal yourselves behind those. Then, when I flash a light upon them, close in swiftly. If I fire, Watson, have no compunction about shooting them down.
I placed my revolver, cocked upon the top of the wooden case, behind which I crouched. Holmes shot the slide across the front of his lantern, and left us in pitch darkness, such absolute darkness as I have never before or experienced. The smell of hot metal remained to assure us that the light was still there, ready to flash out at a moment's notice. To me, with my nerves worked up to a pitch of expectancy, there was something depressing and subduing in the sudden gloom, the cold, dank air of the vault.
"There, but one retreat," whispered Holmes. "That is back to the house at Sackong Square. I hope that you have done what I asked you, Jones." "I haven't expected 2 officers waiting at the front door." "And we have stopped all the Holmes, and now we must be silent and wait."
By the time it seemed, from comparing notes afterwards, it was but an hour and a quarter. It appeared to me the night might have almost gone, and dawn be breaking upon us. My limbs were weary and stiff, for I feared to change my position, yet my nerves have worked up to the highest pitch of tension, and upon my hearing was so acute, I could not only hear the gentle breathing of my companions, but I could distinguish the deeper, heavier in-breath of the bulkier Jones from the thin, sighing notes of the bank director. From my position, I could look over the case in the direction of the floor. Suddenly my eyes caught the glint of light. At first I thought it was a lurid spark upon the stone pavement, and it lengthened out until it became a yellow line. Then, without any warning or sound, a gash seemed to open. A hand appeared, a white, almost womanly hand, that felt about in the center of the little area of light. For a minute or more the hand, with its writhing finger, protruded out of the floor. Then it was withdrawn as suddenly it appeared. All was dark again, save the single lurid spark which marked a chink between the stones. Its disappearance, however, was momentary. With a rending, tearing sound, one of the broad white stones turned over upon its side, left a square gaping hole, through which seemed the light of a lantern. Over the edge there peeped a clean-cut, boyish face, looked keenly about, and then, with a hand on either side of the aperture, drew itself shoulder-high and waist-high until one knee rested upon the edge. In another instant he stood at the side of the hole, was hauling after him a companion, lithe and small like himself, the pale face, a shock of red hair. "It's all clear, haven't you? Have you the chisel and the bags? Great Scott! Jump, Archie, jump, and I'll swing for it!" Sherlock Holmes had sprung out and seized the intruder by the collar. The other dived down the hole. I heard the sound of rending cloth as Joan clutched at his skirts. The light flashed upon the barrel of a revolver, but Holmes' hunting crop came down on the man's wrist, and the pistol clanked upon the stone floor.
"There's no use, young Clay,"
said Holmes blandly.
"You have no chance at all."
"So I see," the other answered with the utmost coolness. "I fancy my pal's all right, though I see you got his coattails."
"There are 3 men waiting for him at the door,"
said Holmes. "Oh, indeed, you seem to have done the thing very completely. I must compliment you."
"And I am. Your red-headed idea was very new and effective."
You'll see
your pal again presently,"
said Jones. "Quicker at climbing down holes than I am. Just hold on while I fix the debris." "I beg you will not touch me with your filthy hands," remarked our prisoner. The handcuffs clattered upon his wrist. "You may not be aware that I have loyal blood in my veins. Have the goodness also, when you address me, always to say sir and please."
"All right,"
said Jones with a stare and a snicker.
"Would you please, sir, march upstairs? We can catch a cab to carry your highness to the police station."
"That is better," said John Clay sincerely. He made a sweeping bow to the 3 of us, and walked quietly off to the custody of the detectives.
"Really, Mr. Holmes?"
said Mr. Merryweather as we followed them from the cellar.
"I do not know how the bank can thank you or repay you. No doubt that you have detected and defeated in the most complete manner one the most determined attempts at bank robbery I've ever come within my experience. I've had one or two little scores of my own to settle, or even one or two little scores of my own to settle with Mr. John Clay," said Holmes. "I've been some small expense over this matter, which I shall expect the bank to refund. Beyond that, I am simply amply repaid by having an experience which is in many ways unique, and just by hearing the remarkable narrative of the Reddited League." "You see, Watson," he explained in the early hours of the morning, as we sat over a glass of whiskey and soda in Baker Street, "it was perfectly obvious from the first the only possible object of this rather fantastic business of the advertisement of the League and the copying of the Encyclopedia must be to get this not very bright pawnbroker out of the way for a number of hours every day. It was a curious way of managing it, but really it would be difficult to suggest a better. The method was no doubt suggested to Clay's ingenious mind by the colour of his accomplice's hair. The £4 a week was a lure which must draw him, and what was it to them, who were playing for thousands? They put it in the advertisement, one rogue at the temporary office, the other rogue incites the man to apply. Together they managed to secure his absence every morning of the week. But that time that I heard the assistant, and having come for half wages, it was always me. He had some strong motive for securing the situation."
"But how could you guess what the motive was?"
Had there been women in the house, I should have suspected a mere vulgar intriguance. That, however, was out of the question. The man's business is a small one, and there was nothing in his house which could account for such elaborate preparation, such expenditure, as they were at. I must then be something out of the house. What could it be? The thought of an assistant's fondness for photography, his trick of vanishing into the cellar. The cellar. That was the end of this tangled clue. Then I made inquiries as to this mysterious assistant, and found that I had to deal with one of the coolest, most daring girls in London. He was doing something in the cellar, something which took many hours a day for months on end. What could be, once more? I could think of nothing save that he was running a tunnel to some under the building. So far I had gone when he went to visit the scene of action. Surprise you by beating upon the pavement with my stick. I ascertained whether the cellar stretched out in front of or behind. It was not in front. When I rang the bell, as I hoped, the assistant answered. We have had some skirmishes, but we never set eyes upon each other before. I hardly looked at his face, his knees were what I wished to see. You must yourself have remarked of how worn and wrinkled and stained they were. They spoke of those hours of borrowing. The only remaining point was what they were borrowing for. I walked around the corner and saw the City and Sovereign Bank, obtruded on our friend's premises, and felt that I had solved my problem. When we drove home after the concert, I called upon Scotland Yard, and upon
This motherfucking dumb. Where was I?
When we drove home after the concert, I called upon Scotland Yard, and upon the chairman of the bank directors, with the result that you have seen.
And how could you tell that they would make their attempt tonight?" I asked.
Well, when they closed the League offices, that was a sign they cared no longer about Mr. Jefferson Wilson's presence. In other words, that they had completed their tunnel. But it was essential they could use it soon, as it might be discovered, or the boycott be removed. Saturday would be suit them better than any other day, and to give them 2 days for the escape. For all these reasons, I expected them to come tonight.
"You reasoned it out beautifully," I exclaimed, in unfeigned admiration. "It is so long a chain, and yet every link rings true."
"It saved me from inuma,"
he answered, yawning.
"Alas, I already feel it closing in upon me. My life is spent in one long effort to escape from commonplace existence. These little problems help me do so."
"And you are a benefactor of the race," said I. He shrugged his shoulders.
"Oh, perhaps, after all, it is some little use," he remarked. "Le Roman sestran, arvos sestors, as good for the throat in Jursa."
All right, that's the end of that one. I was actually glad I could figure that out with the clues that we had beforehand. Drink man? Alright, alright. Alright. So, that actually might make a good stopping place right after the second story. Jeez. So, next time we do this, we'll be starting at case 3. Dude, the Holmes voice hurts. But it's so much fun. So, I guess with that, let's see if there's anyone of note streaming right now to raid. It hurts so good, energy. Oh, here's one that's been popping around. So, I guess with that, we're gonna be rating someone, and Sherlock. Actually, she's been hanging around one of the people I hang around with. Seems very pleasant and entertaining. And very kick-ass too. So, I guess I'll do my usual sign-off then. I'd like to wish you all a fond farewell, and thank you for stopping by. If you like this, of course, follow me on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing, because it really helps me out. I, of course, have a Ko-Fi, and I have a throne, shameless plugs, yada yada. But, raid, did I do it, or is it slash? Yeah, it's slash. And then do, alright, that should do it. So, until next time, fare thee well.